Let us begin by me redoing my camera because apparently my cam didn't want to work. One sec. Ladies and gentlemen, let's not begin just yet. One moment, please. We do this, do that. Bada bing, bada boom. All right. Technical difficulties aside. Ladies and gentlemen, let us begin Beyond the Rift episode number 85, starring the one and only I'm a Cutie Pie, the best Kaisa in North America. I think I could say that without a doubt. No one will contend with it. Joining me today, Skara. Skara, tell them a little bit about yourself.
I'm the other co-host, guys. I'm Skara. Was on a team with Cutie, played with Cutie, as well as, was a coach for Team Dignitas, coach for CLG. I've done all kinds of stuff, and now I'm here to share with you my great wealth of knowledge and experience.
And joining us today, our special guest with the greatest wealth of knowledge. Give him a quick intro.
Yeah, I'm RiotReav3. I'm the lead producer of the Champions team at Riot. We make all the VGUs, the new champions, the class updates we also used to do before we discontinued those. Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Before we get underway, we're going to talk a little bit about Discord. Wonderful voice chat program. If you guys love chatting online with millions, billions of people, Discord, download it. We're going to have a live question and answer at the end of the show where you got questions, we got answers. You know how it goes. Download the fucking program. All right, let's get into it then. Let's go to topic number 1. So what exactly does a champion producer at Riot Games do?
Sure. So at Riot Games, we basically have two types of producers. We have ones we call development managers, and we also have ones we call product managers. I'm on the product manager side, and basically the roles of those two we usually call like what and how. And product manager usually looking at what we should work on, like should we do VGUs, which VGUs should we work on? For new champions, it's like what things are missing from the game, what is like what we call like an opportunity space, which is like something that's missing from the game. For example, Zoe, it was like, hey, let's make a high mechanics but bright and colorful champion, because a lot of our more like high mechanics mid laners were like Yasuos and Zeds and very serious, and we felt like we were kind of missing a more like bubbly, happy type positive champion in that space. So as a product manager, we'll look at that. We'll also look at like the strategy for the team, whether doing class updates, for example, would be like a production decision, and then the team would kind of like work on it from there. And then we have dev managers, which are like doing the scheduling and like how are we going to get this on time, and like managing kind of the actual development of creating it.
Wow, that's kind of cool. I didn't realize that they had like, we want a high mechanics champion that's super bubbly. I didn't realize that's like the process where, all right, we need to make a champion like this. Let's start working on it. What's been the weirdest like request that someone's given you, like, or what's been the weirdest thing that you felt League of Legends is needed? Like Urgot, what was the thought process with that? We need a fat guy that just does some shit.
You got 8 legs.
Well, I mean, I don't know if we had back then. I mean, with opportunity spaces came on later when we had a lot of champions, right? And then it was like finding something new when you had a lot was a lot different. I think back in Urgot time, I wasn't working here at the time. From what I understand, they were kind of like pumping. That was back when they were doing like every 2 weeks. I think the strategy then was more like get as many unique and interesting champions in the game to make the roster feel like big and diverse. Obviously, we've switched strategies. I think you'll remember a time when like this champion started coming out slower and less often, and this is when we're like, okay, we have tons of champions. We should slow down a little bit and really make sure they're like unique and interesting, and not just making them. Part of why we started doing class updates was due to making so many so fast. We had a lot that were very similar, and that weren't very different from one another, and we wanted to go like quickly differentiate different champions.
Yeah, I'll say that a lot of the champions that have come out now definitely. They don't feel the same. Like before, all the champion, like a lot of the ADs kind of do feel the same. But now, like Kaisa, for instance, she definitely doesn't feel like any AD that I've played, because most of them are pretty cut and dry. It's like you do this shit, you just auto attack from range, and you have an attack speed buff or something. I mean, I guess she has an attack speed buff, but she definitely lacking the range. So I kind of like that.
Yeah. Yeah, for Kaisa, the opportunity spaces, we wanted to do kind of a very high risk, high reward, almost like ADC assassin hybrid champion. We also wanted to do something that would appeal to like sci-fi shooter fans because we thought that we didn't have like that kind of thing in the bot lane.
So do you feel like you hit that high risk, high reward kind of gap with Kaisa?
It's too early to say, right? Because she just came out. I think her R makes her pretty high risk. I mean, having to go in with that R and actually mastery around that ability is what you see like people learn over time. At least we saw our playtest team learn over time. But I mean, who knows? We have a lot of goals, right? And then when we release them to the wild, sometimes it's different than what we'd expect, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Kaisa's definitely. I think she's good. She just needs like number tweaks. But to what you said that you didn't have something that appealed to like sci-fi fans. Is that not the job of like the skins or whatever? Or like, how does that? Does it really matter?
It was more like a gameplay thing, not necessarily just like thematic, right? Because we didn't go full like, sci-fi suit with her, but like the E was inspired by a lot of like, kind of shooters where you run and sprint and then pull out your gun and shoot. And like a lot of her early mechanics, we were kind of trying to do this almost like sci-fi feeling. Similar to Jin, we were trying to get like that sniper feeling where like a sniper shooting at you from a distance and like you're trying to dodge it and there's like 4 shots. So you're like, oh, where's he coming from? We try to like translate some like inspirations from different things into the game.
So just as a clarification, you guys are just like the thematic people. Like you see the vision, you're not the numbers people, right? You're not there being like this has to be exactly like 250 damage with like a 0.6 scaling. You just give the balance team like your design, and you're just like go run with it, right?
Well, the designer of the kit is on the champions team that designs it, right? But yeah, we generally work with them through development on the tuning and numbers. So champions team is largely focused on trying to make fun, exciting new champions for the game. And then we'll have our playtest team. We had like Robert X. Lee was the playtester on Kaisa, so he's like playing it constantly all day, every day. Then we also have the balance team, which we're consulting with towards probably like the last couple months. We start really working with the balance team to kind of work on the numbers and stuff like that. But yeah, we're mostly from the beginning, like, hey, what's new and exciting in League? Is this going to be a fun champion? Is it going to add something to League? Is mostly what we're concerned about.
Okay. Is there anything that? Actually, I think that's the later question. Never mind. All right, let's go to the next topic. How does the champion process work?
Sure. So generally, we start with, like I said, we have like an opportunity space, and well, as the producer, it's ultimately my job to be like, hey, this is what the strategy for, the different champions we're releasing are. This is what the opportunity space for this champion is. A lot of people will pitch ideas to me, and other people on the team will come up with cool opportunity spaces. It's not just me coming up with them; everybody does. But ultimately, I'll look at like, hey, what do we have for the year? What are the roles and positions? What are the tones? And try to create like a strategy. So like different stuff will be coming out. To go back to the Zoe example, it was like, okay, we knew we had Evelyn and Swain, which are very dark champions. So doing a more like bright champion in between was also something we wanted to do. So we're not just hitting the same note. So that's the beginning. After that, we'll assemble what we call a DNA team. And what that stands for is like we get a designer, a narrative writer, and a concept artist. And we kind of get together with the opportunity space. Hey, here's the high-level goals for what this champion could be. Or in a VGU case, it's like, hey, this is the champion we're reworking. This is why we think we should rework him. And those 3 members will initially start throwing down some like kit ideas, some concept art, some narrative kind of themes and story elements. And they'll kind of work towards eventually putting together like a package of like a kit that we lock. Over the course of like 3 to 4 months, like what's their narrative going to be? What's their concept art going to look like? That's the first stage. We call that like discovery and ideation. Once we get to a point where we have a kit, concept art, and narrative, we go into production or pre-production where we start getting animators, effects artists, all the kind of people that are actually going to build the champion, come together and start working on that. And then we go into like full production, which is usually when we have full kit lock, final concept art, everything, and that's just like building it, putting it together, balancing it afterwards, getting it all up and running, the VO, all that stuff, and then we release it.
How many champions do you usually have during like the, I guess, because you talked about how you knew you had like the Swain visual updates and the Evelyn, so you wanted to put the Zoe in between them. Like, is it just however many champions you have at the time, or do you guys try to have like some order to it?
So we generally have about 10 things in production at one time. We generally have about 5 that are in that ideation time, and during that, it's a little bit like usually it's 3 to 4 months. But if we try some crazy things that don't work out, we could icebox stuff in this time period. Try things that never even saw the light of day, right? Once it goes into production, we're pretty guaranteed to ship it, and at that point, we can kind of look at the overall schedule and stuff. Generally, we have an idea that it'll take about 3 to 4 months, though, so we can think ahead when I'm looking at like, hey, what is the champion release schedule going to look like over the next year or so? But yeah, usually we have 5 champions in full production, 5 VGUs or new champs, a combination of those in production, and 5 in like ideation discovery.
You said that you would, if you didn't feel like whatever, you'd just get rid of them. Is there any one that you really like that you just hated to have to get rid of?
You mean like something we completely icebox?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were working on like I mean, this champion might come back, but we were working on this kind of like summoner champion for a while that a lot of people were excited about. But summoning and pet controls has always been something that hasn't been super satisfying in our game and has been difficult for us to pull off successfully, which we tried a lot of different ways with, and we ended up like iceboxing that a while ago. It's still something we're excited about doing at some point because we think like summoner as a theme is cool. We just have to have the right tech to be able to execute on that fantasy properly. Because I think there's a lot of expectations players get if we show them, hey, here's a summoner, here's the art. There's like an expectation in people's head of what that would be, and we'd want to deliver on that.
Well, that would be.
I got a question.
Okay, go.
All right. I just want to know. So you talked about the DNA team going together with a narrative writer. How important is lore when it comes to making a champion? Like, are you guys really just like, it's got to follow like exactly like the Noxian timeline? It's got to perfectly align right here, and it's got to be like right. Like, he has to exist in this sphere? Or are you guys okay just, like, retconning stuff left and right, being like, you know what? This champion's pretty cool. How do we just kind of squeeze him into the lore? Like, he kind of appeared out of the 4th dimension and, like, kind of walked into the lore. Like, are you guys okay with that? Is the champion's cool enough?
Yeah, definitely. I think priority 1 is making really cool characters. Obviously, we want the champions to work with the lore. We don't want to break it completely or anything. But our narrative writers on the champion team are more character writers, which we do think is important, which is like less about how does they fit exactly in the lore, and it's more like what's the personality and the theme of this champion, which I think is important. Like, Kaisa being a hardened survivor, you know what I mean? And what that character would act like. So I think that does translate into types of abilities and stuff like that. The exact nuance of like, oh, they're in Noxus in this region. A lot of times it won't be till like after discovery ideation we feel we have a really cool character, and then we'll be like, okay, how do we fit this character in Aurora? Oh, maybe it makes sense in Noxus or Demacia, and then we'll kind of do that stuff afterward.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like, we had a lot of different Zoe regions. Like, we really liked the character for being like this trickster girl. We like toyed with. We ended up with Mount Targon, but we had like some Fae stuff where she was like from where Lulu was at, but then she felt too similar to Lulu since they were both kind of like happier characters from like kind of Fae fairy type characters. She had like wings at one point in early development, and we ended up just going with the Targon stuff because the like kind of glittery stardust thing felt right with kind of the space themes of Targon.
Okay. I don't know anything about the lore anymore because I used to be a hardened. Scar will back me up. Back when there was a.
Wait.
Do you remember the what was it called? They had like a newsletter they'd put out every week.
No, I remembered when we were in game time, we were preparing for like our big matches. You would just randomly say lore facts. That'd be like. You focus, dude, and you just start talking about lore. I'm like,
dude.
All right, I guess we're good.
Dude, that's good to hear, though. That I'm a big fan of lore. I like hearing that it's well thought out about. So thank you for that. Let's go to the next topic, though. So, how do you decide which champions gets reworked?
Okay, so I'll focus specifically on the big VGUs for now. I think we could talk about like class updates a little bit later in the show. But our big VGUs, because the process was definitely different between those two. So big VGUs, we're generally looking at like, a multitude of things. It's like art. The art team is like, hey, this champion's like well below what we think art should be. Gameplay is probably the number one reason. It's like, hey, this kit is either very boring, like Warwick, who wasn't particularly unhealthy for the game, but a lot of our players are like, yeah, we feel this kit's really boring and dated. Could be like very unhealthy to play against. A lot of people feel very frustrated playing against it. It could just be like very binary. There's a lot of gameplay reasons. Then there's also like thematic reasons with champions that are kind of old and feel either very generic or don't feel as unique to our game. So we like look at all these kind of things holistically, as well as player. We have survey data that our insights team provides, which is just basically like which champion would you like to get a VGU? And we usually can look at like, you know, the top 10, 15 ones players are also requesting. We also look at potential. When you look at a champion like Aurelia, while she's not like currently as bad as Nunu, we felt that like the Blade Dancer theme had like pretty high potential for gameplay and mechanics, and she was pretty basic at the time. So there's a lot of excitement around like what her kit could be with that theme. So we look at like all these, and then we also look, like I said, like the overall schedule. What are the new champions we have? What are the roles we're doing? Like we might be like, hey, Nunu really needs to be reworked, and we just did Evelyn. We probably don't want to do like keep doing junglers back to back. I think at the time we had done like Evelyn and Kane, and we were thinking about Nunu, and we're like, yeah, well, we need to cool it on the junglers, and we did a lot of junglers in the tank update as well. So we also look at like what else is happening around this time. And then we'll take all that kind of information and also get like what is the team excited about, and then we'll kind of look at like play rate. Obviously, like champions have like very low play rate, no one's really interested in. It's like a sign of like champions not very resonant. And we take all that and kind of figure out who would be the best for VGUs. And then we'll boil it down to like 10-ish that we think are like good opportunities. And then when a team is ready, like they finished another project, we have a designer, narrative, and concept artist, like DNA pod ready. We're like, hey, here's like a bunch of ones we think are exciting. And if that team will like maybe explore 2 or 3 of them, and then if we find like a really strong pitch towards one, then we'll usually start going into more deeper exploration on it. Yeah, so it's kind of a combination of a lot of things.
You said that you get data from people, like what is the most sought after VGU from like the player base? I don't know if you can say that or not.
Right now?
Yeah.
Right now, the top 2 are Nunu and Aatrox. So strangely enough, it's like Aatrox isn't even that old, and he shows up like one of the highest.
Wait, Nunu too?
Nunu and Aatrox in the last one. So we do the survey every like 6 months-ish, and I think the last one, yeah, Nunu and Aatrox were like the highest requested. Obviously, ones like Akali shows up in there a lot. I think a lot of that is like people want Akali to be really cool, even though she's maybe not as bad as like a Nunu or something like that, which you'll see show up in a lot of these like player requests. Evelyn, for example, was always extremely high in requests before the VGU, even though like there were worse probably champions like Urgot and stuff like that. I think as people are more excited about Evelyn being VGU'd. Urgot was for a long time the bottom until we finally got to him. And that one took a long time because we actually tried a few versions of VGUs on Urgot that just didn't pan out and weren't going to be good enough, and we kind of like scrapped him, which is why it took us a while. Like he probably needed it more than Warwick, for example.
Wow, I'm surprised though that Nunu's like one of the top, because I feel like most people like I love playing. I don't know how you feel about Nunu, Scar, but
Nunu is like a full champion. Like he's got a unique kit. He does something unique in the game. He has an annoying position where he like counter juggles and shit, but like that's his job. He's a zoning frontline champion that makes your AD better. That's cool.
Yeah,
I'm surprised people want to rework.
Yeah, I'm curious. What's your take on that? Because I feel like he does fulfill like a unique role. Like he is an invading. I mean, I guess maybe he could have something look better. I have no idea. What's your take?
Yeah, I think his unique role is interesting, and I think should we VGU him, we would want to preserve all of that, right? But I do think that he's kind of like Warwick, where he's just kind of old. He's also like, so we have this like data that we call breadth versus depth. This is kind of a fun fact about just Nunu in general, where it basically takes like, it looks at the breadth of a champion and the depth of a champion. And basically breadth means the higher a champion is on breadth, it means the more people just play that, the more games that champion just gets played in general. And then the higher it is on depth, it means the more one tricks that champion has. It means someone keeps playing the same champion over and over. So a champion like Annie is extremely high on breadth, which means a lot of people occasionally play Annie, but she's very low on depth, which a lot of people don't just spam Annie, right? And Nunu is actually the lowest on breadth of depth of the entire game, which means not a lot of people even see Nunu and decide they want to try him. And then when people do try him, they usually bounce immediately. which shows even though he has like an interesting identity in the game, a lot of our players are just not super interested in playing Nunu right now. But I 100% agree that he has a unique strategic identity that we'd probably want to preserve in a rework.
Damn, I can't believe that.
Warwick, we preserved his like jump and like lock people down thing, right?
Yeah, I like Warwick's rework. I can't believe that so many people don't like. Yeah, no one won. I guess that's true. I've never seen like a Nunu one trick. I mean, I don't know if you have, Scott.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't think he's. I think he's unique enough to where people should want to play him because he does cool stuff. But I guess this is maybe not cool enough. Like,
yeah, that's interesting.
No, Yasuo is the highest breadth of death in the whole game. So that's
Oh, really? I mean, that makes sense actually. No, that
if you take ranked out. So this is looking at all games, right? Globally too. So if you take like NA out, obviously Yasuo isn't the highest. Eastern regions push him really, really far. But if you take ranked into consideration, the breadth versus depth changes quite a lot, and actually is very much more prone to balance, right? If a champion gets strong or weak, their breadth or depth like swings dramatically. Or if you look at just all games, including blind pick, stuff is more consistent, right? Where people play because they like the champion a lot more, less concerned about what's the strongest at the exact moment. Unless something's extremely weak or extremely strong, then you see it spike kind of everywhere.
Wow, that's crazy though. I didn't know there was so much like analytics behind this stuff. Like, I mean, I guess it sounds like so obvious that something like this should be taken into consideration, but I never even like, that's why I always tell people, like, don't ask me about anything relating to the game. Just ask me about how to play. I don't know anything. Like, I can't use my brain, dude. I just know how to right click my mouse and do stuff. But for
like Jinx is like the least balance dependent champion as far as like where she moves as far as player, which is always kind of interesting. Where it's like people like her theme so much that like they just kind of play her all the time, right? And she's kind of
really
fun, right?
Like that's ridiculous too, because I never see Jinx played in any of my games. But yeah, that's not considering it's just
majority of players don't play ranked either, right?
Yeah.
It's like a smaller percentage of players.
Right.
Yeah, that makes.
And a majority of them are like in the like silver, gold, bronze land, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Percentage-wise on the ladder.
Well, let me ask you
But we can separate from elos, and you definitely see if you go the higher up you go, it gets very dependent on meta, right? What's most played?
Yeah, I can only imagine that. At like Challenger, the breadth versus depth thing probably not too great for knowing what to rework.
It's really
another fun fact on this is like that's interesting. You might find interesting, Cutie Pie, is that ADCs are the most swingy in terms of which one's the strongest, which is largely due to the fact that ADCs are the easiest to transfer between in that like auto attack moving, trying to transfers from one to the other, whereas like champions that rely on their abilities, it's harder just to go, hey, this one's strong, let's switch. And in all like elos and ranks and stuff, you see like if Shan is strong, she spikes. If Jin's strong, she has a giant spike. And ADCs in general move the most dependent on power than anything else.
I believe that because I tell my chat every time AD is the easiest role to play. It's literally just plug and play. Like you never played Tristana, play it. Okay, you learn how to play Tristana, you learn how to play everything bottom. Good job. Like if you know how to play one AD, you can probably play them all. So that makes sense to me. But
yeah, I feel like AD carries also like the most like meta slavey role as well in solo queue. Even at like my elo where it's like every AD I go into the game, I know every AD is gonna get picked. It's gonna be Varus this game, or it's gonna be like Tristana, or it's gonna be like exactly these like 4 ADs. Where it's like every other role can go wild, but the AD role you gotta pick 4. That's how it seems like.
Yeah, there's not.
Well, plus, like I said, like if you're like an assassin player and suddenly a mage is strong, it's probably harder from patch to patch to immediately master a different class than change to a different ADC or like champion that plays very, very differently, right? And sometimes you're probably better off playing a champion that is a little bit weaker that you played a lot of games on in some cases.
Well, you said about depth is how much like a champion is one trait for ADC.
Right.
For depth, is it just basically what's meta at the moment? Because I don't really see, I've thought about it before, and it's like, I don't really see people one-tricking champions on ADC. I don't know if you see it, Scar, but usually...
It's really just Draven.
Yeah, I guess that's true, actually.
I'm not even kidding.
Draven stays pretty high in depth. I think in general, a lot of the popular ones stay pretty high in depth regardless of the meta. You'll just see big spikes in ones. And there's certain champions that if they're popular and are meta, just spike massively. Like if Ezreal or Lucian or Jhin are like ever strong, they just like go out of control, right? Because the people like they're very popular champions, and then they're strong, and everyone's like, I'm gonna play the shit out of this right now, right? Okay. Or Vayne when she was strong for like a little bit, her player she's like the highest played champion in the game for a period.
Oh, holy!
Especially when her legendary skin came out, she's like spiked to the highest played champion in the game globally for like that patch.
Damn, that's crazy though. But I guess for the last question on this topic, what would be a champion that you want to see rework? Is there one that you want to see rework that you're maybe trying to push or?
Well, I mean, I wanted to see Aurelia and Akali and stuff reworked, right?
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, I play a lot of assassins, skirmishers, and stuff like that.
Oh, that's what I like to hear. That's the stuff I want to see reworked.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about those. I'm trying to think of something that we haven't announced yet that we're not working on that I would be excited. I mean, I'm pretty excited about eventually doing Volibear just because I think he's like, you know, there's a lot of potential in that theme. We've had a lot of struggles balancing him, and I think he just has potential to be way cooler than he is right now. Like, to do like an actual like lightning bear themed champion nowadays, I think could be like super cool and interesting, and have some pretty interesting mechanics. So that's one I'm excited about. Nocturne's another one. I think he has like a lot of potential should we get to him one day.
Yeah, Nocturne would be, if I saw, because like thematically he seems like such a cool champion, and then you like look at him and he's just some guy with like 2 swords for hands. I love Nocturne's theme, but
I mean, that theme and those champions are good for VGUs because it's like they have a strong theme already. The execution's just bad, so like good execution could be like really cool for Nocturne. I think he has like a lot of potential.
Yeah, I don't know how
it's like Warwick. The werewolf theme was like cool for Warwick. It was just kind of like executed in that old kind of League way. Like the newer execution is like scary, right? You like hear him hunting you on the map. He's like running after you on all fours and stuff.
Yeah, hearing that thing come globally, that blood scent, I hate that shit. But I don't know how I feel about Volibear, the Thunder Bear thing. That guy, I don't know what you guys could possibly do to VGU him to make him like, oh my god, it's Volibear.
Really?
Well, the one I feel that way is Skarner. I'm like, you know, we need to VGU Skarner at someday, definitely. I mean, that champion needs work, but like, how do you, like, what do you do there?
Yeah, actually, that
like,
makes sense.
We've done pretty extreme, you know, upgrades to stuff like Galio and stuff that, like, were, like, pretty low from a lot of our players on Resonance and really upgraded their theme quite a bit. But, like, Skarner needs a lot of work on the theme.
Yeah, actually, what would you classify Skarner's theme at? Because I don't even know I don't know what Skarner is. Like, he's like a scorpion dude.
Scorpion pillar dude.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's like at least Galio, like Gargoyle, you can imagine being right.
Yeah. That's quite the undertaking. I want to see the Skarner rework, the Skarner VG. That'd be nice. All right, let's go to the next topic. Anything you can tell us about any champions in development right now?
Here we go.
Sure. Obviously, I can't talk about that much, but we can go over some of the stuff. So, obviously, Kai'Sa's just out. Aurelia is coming out soon. We're like just polishing up her skins, so she's like getting pretty close. We talked about her a little bit. She's one of those ones that I mentioned before. We felt her potential is very high. She's also requested from players, not like as high as like a Nunu and Aatrox, but she's pretty binary. She gets really stat checky in a lot of stages of the game. Plus, we thought her theme was a lot more exciting. We decided to go in a direction of really pushing her Q because her Q is like super fun. It's a really exciting ability. Aurelia players like Q. I think Q is a great ability. We really wanted to say like, how can we turn this Q up to like an 11 and really give her like a lot more ways to reset her Q and make like sick flashy plays and stuff like that. So we're pushing in that direction, keeping the Q, changing a lot of her others. I know you played it, Skara.
Oh yeah, I can't say anything, which is why I'm just like, all right, I'm waiting for you to spill the beans so I can, kind of play off of it.
I can't go to. I know you're playing against that top lane Swain.
Yeah,
King Cobra's Swain.
Yeah, I was actually told that you guys nerfed Swain after that game. because you guys are worried Swain was too bad, and then I think that's actually hilarious because
they're like, yeah, we're like King Cobra got like. I mean, Scar got wrecked by King Cobra. This champion must be broken.
Wait, Scar, come on, Scar, dude.
Dude, I played the new Aurelia vs. Swain top lane. I first blooded him, rushed Hexstreaker, and lost the 1v1. And I was just like, are you for real? What is this champion? And then they, I guess, agree with me and nerfed Swain before the release, which is funny because now he's being buffed.
Now we're
again,
buffing him, yeah.
So maybe the over nerf was because of me.
Yeah, probably.
Hopefully we didn't over buff him. I mean, I saw the who was it that played it in LCK on 8.3? Was it BDD?
It was MVP. MVP played Swain top. I don't remember who did it. What the player name was.
That was on 8.3. It would be interesting to see with the 8.5 buffs if his top lane does a little better. I know his win rate's pretty high right now. So we'll continue to look at that. Yeah, it was ADD. You're right.
Yeah, that champ's nutty. Swain busted. With that buff, dude, Sky, you just ruined it for everyone, man. You got him nerfed just to get him over buffed, and now he's going to be a monster.
And the worst thing is he's a top laner. Like, all this hype that people are like, oh no, Swain's a mid laner. No, he's a top laner. And I'm just like,
I mean, we were expecting him to be top mid. We were testing him around both those lanes. That's what he is on live, and we didn't really want to mess with that too much, so.
Yeah. I think he's like actually a high priority top laner now, and mid lane he's just like above average. And I'm like,
I think he'll be like Vlad though, where Vlad kind of flip flops depending on the meta between mid and top, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Vlad's top now, right? He was mid for like a long time after his rework.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Let me ask, can you say a little bit about what Aurelia's ulti is? Because I just like hearing what ultimate abilities are. Can you say a little bit about what it is?
Yeah, I obviously can't say. I want the team has been working really hard and wants to show that stuff when it comes out. It does give her. I mentioned in my last champion blog that it does give her more team fighting abilities than.
It's not just blades that shoot out of her, just 4 blades that you just launch out. Or
no, we did preserve something like that, but we moved it off of her ult because there's some cool stuff in there, how it works with Triforce and stuff like that. I'm not going to say any more than that.
Okay.
We had ICU come in too, which was fun.
Apparently you really liked his work too. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a really cool guy too. It was really fun having him in here, but he played it, gave us a bunch of feedback and stuff like that. Did some tweaks based on that as well.
Well, are there any other champions in development you can tell us about?
So we have another new champ too that I don't. Scara saw a little bit of it.
It's the next one, right?
So, this might be a good time to talk about some of our new champion strategy if you guys are interested. If people don't know, we used to have 2 separate teams. Basically, we had champion update and we had a champion team, and we recently combined them into one team, largely because more and more champions were looking like they needed VGUs, and at the time we basically had, I told you we have 5 things in development. Basically, there was 3 teams that did champions and 2 small teams that did VGUs on those teams. So we had basic 40% VGUs, 60% new champs. But over time, we realized that we probably needed to do more VGUs as more and more champions are looking outdated and kind of old and needed bigger reworks. So we decided to combine the teams so we could be more flexible. It's hey, if a bunch of champions need VGUs, we can do more this year, less new champions, flip it around. So we combined the teams, and then we kind of asked ourselves too, we surveyed a lot of players, and many players said they actually 50-50 preferred VGUs or new champs. There's a lot of our players liking the VGUs as well. And as our roster gets bigger and bigger, we have more and more new champs. We're so what is the purpose of a new champ, right? Why don't we just completely fix all the broken champs and not do new champs, right? Obviously, people are really excited about new champs. We wouldn't stop doing them, but we were wondering what's the difference, right? And ultimately, we came to the conclusion that a new champ needs to really add a new way to play League of Legends. It can't just be hey, here's a new champ, it's cool. It's we can just do a more bread and butter thing with the VGU. But we want a champion to come out and be hey guys, this is a new way to play League of Legends. Kai'Sa's assassin, marksman, dives straight into the back line. Zoe's stealing summoner spells, and we wanted to really add stuff that was pushing the boundaries. So long story short, you probably expect slightly less new champs coming forward, but when we do release them, we want them to be really crazy, even crazier than before.
The next
So we do have a new champ that's pretty crazy.
The next champ is my favorite champ that's been released in a while.
Oh, what?
I don't even know. It's one of those champions that keeps me up at night like more than Zoe did, right? And it's like, well, but I think that's good, right? I think if we're not terrified to release champs to some degree, they're probably not exciting enough, right?
So what of the cool things I like about what you guys are doing now is it feels like every visual update or every new champion has something unique to the kit.
Yeah.
And so like I know the kits of the future reworks, and I know the kits of the future champions. Every single one has something that has not been seen in the game before.
Yes.
That Zoe W. Even what was the Kaisa has her, teleporting plus like all that other random
evolve
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, the evolve stuff. What was the last visual update as well?
Well,
I mean,
Swain, right?
had the old Swain. Yeah, Swain has like the passive where you pull them in.
Yeah.
And so everything is adding like a small unique thing. And I like that. I think that having those unique things define the champions that they are and create like, I just like adding new things. So I personally will say the next champion is my favorite idea of a champion I've seen in a long time. But I can't say it. So I think
I don't want to ruin it.
I think it's better to talk about what you guys want to do with Aatrox, because that's like, I think talking about your idea is what will be better.
Sure. So we can talk about Aatrox and Akali, right? I've announced both of those in my last blog.
Yes.
They've actually changed. We've added more, like, other stuff since even you played it. They were in, like, back to the process when I was talking to you before, they were in, like, the ideation discovery process when you had come in, Skara. Those have both gone into, like, production phases, so we're further along and they've changed a little bit. Well, first of all, just back on the new champs. That champion's crazy. There's some other stuff we're trying that isn't even in production, because the next new champ that we were just talking about is in production, that are like, some stuff's even crazier. I have no idea if it'll ever see the light of day, but we really want to try stuff that's like going to push some boundaries, hopefully. But going back to Aatrox, I mean, he was, like I said, one of the, like, it's interesting because I mentioned the survey about how he's like one of the highest requested. He's also like really high in do you like the champion's theme, which is kind of interesting, which means players like the idea of Aatrox and want him to be cool, but they pretty much don't like his kit at all. And we see this with some champions, like Aurelion Sol often shows up as number one on do you like this champion's theme on our surveys, and like very low on gameplay satisfaction, right? But Aatrox is similar. So instead of like changing one thing, we're like, hey, let's just remake Aatrox with this theme that he already has, but let's remake him like from the ground up, basically. And we were initially planning to be like the biggest pure gameplay update, but since then we've actually like it's escalated a bit, where we've actually given him like a new model, a new anim, and that type of stuff. Similar rig, so probably closer scope to like Fiora. But yeah, I mean, we really wanted to sell this. He had like a giant sword, right? And like we're like, we don't really have a champion that embodies like a great sword duelist. Like when you play like Dark Souls, like those kind of moves where they have the giant heavy sword and they kind of like hit you slow, but they're like do a ton of damage when they land them, but in a kind of like more combo-y way. We thought that kind of a theme fit it, and almost like a Dark Souls boss where they just like they resurrect and come back and they keep coming at you and like with huge powerful blows, and like you get hit with one of them and you're kind of done. And we thought that would be a cool direction for Aatrox, right?
I like the way that actually sounds like you're talking about something like Nautilus with some weight behind his like, so like when you see him swing, he has to like lug the thing at you like Naughty does, or no?
It's like what if Riven was a juggernaut or something like that, right? Just like coming at you, right? Is the kind of stuff, kind of directions that we've been excited about on the Aatrox stuff, right?
Okay. Well, so are you doing like so you're going to be redoing his abilities, right?
Yeah, he's full, like completely new kit, 100%. Like he has nods like to the old kit that makes sense with his theme, but they work in very different ways than live Aatrox and stuff like that. So.
Okay. So you're going to keep the like reviving though, right? And the like blood sucking or that type of thing?
We have elements of that stuff. It just works very differently.
Okay, fair enough.
That's kind of how I'm going to leave it, because I don't want to give away too much.
Combo-oriented juggernaut champ?
That sounds interesting.
I'm good for it.
All right, let's go to the next one. Oh, would you want?
Okay. I don't know if you want to chat about Akali or not.
Oh, okay, yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Akali, because I actually hate playing against Akali. I can't stand this champion. Like, I don't know how it rates on like the satisfaction thing. I imagine the sick motherfuckers that play this champion are real satisfied about it, but I hate this champion. So, tell me a little bit about the Akali changes.
Well, we do have certainly tea on that, so I don't know how.
Oh.
No. I think one of our goals is to make her better to play against, because when a champion feels that frustrating, a lot of times we end up having to like gimp them to some degree in the early game and stuff like that. So we do want to make her more fair. However, we do think that like the Shroud specifically, which while can be one of the frustrating things to play against, is what makes her unique for an assassin, right? Most assassins tend to go in, do their thing, and run away, where Akali tends to go in, hide right in front of you, and kind of like hide in your face, like right in front of you, like in plain sight, I guess. And we wanted to preserve that. We do have a much crazier iteration of the Shroud. I mean, similar to Aurelia, we kind of wanted to turn that up to 11 and do something a little more unique. Plus, the current Shroud has a lot of problems where it's like in a exact spot. So if you know exactly where Akali's obviously in there, throw AoE and stuff like that, which makes her just have to kind of stand there. We wanted to make that a little bit more interesting for the Akali player as well. As well as like, you know, just modernize her kit a lot more. We're not trying to like push her to be completely different than current Akali. We just, similar to Warwick, want to kind of like amp some stuff up, make her a little more modern and interesting. Yeah.
Are you
basically
going to be changing her like actual visual? Because I know for Aatrox, you said you kind of want to make him like more of a juggernaut, like lugging this sword around. Is Akali going to stay that like dual scythe wielding assassin type, or?
She's going to be, Ninja Girl, we think is an iconic thing of her. She is getting an entire VGU, so yes, she'll have a complete new model. But I think similar to Warwick, we're not messing with her core theme, so Warwick's still a werewolf. She's still going to be like a cool ninja girl. We just want to make her look a little less generic, and hopefully a little bit more like unique and add elements that makes it feel like when you see her, it's like, oh, that's League's Akali. That's not just Ninja Girl. That could be from kind of anything, right? So she'll definitely be new anims, new all that kind of stuff, new VO, full package.
Okay. Is there an ETA you can give on these?
I mean, all the ones I've talked about here will be this year, right? We have target patches for things, but we don't want to release something unless we feel like we hit where we need to hit on it. So a lot of times we'll like push them if we need to, or earlier if things go well. So I don't want to say exactly when.
Okay.
But yeah, all that stuff.
All right, fair enough then.
This year.
Okay, so next topic, the assassin class update seems to have missed its mark with a lot of reworks getting reverted. I'll start off by saying Scar makes these topics, not me. What happened? Sky, I'm not making enemies, dude.
Great topic.
I want to know. Okay, I'm an assassin player. I played Fizz. I played Cat. I play like Diana, Cassidy. I play Zed. I play Talon. I play literally almost every rework champion, and half of them got reverted.
Yep. I mean, and I'm an assassin player too, so I actually really want to talk about this. I mean, I was the one super excited to do the assassin class update, even though obviously there's plenty of people that are like, that's a risky class update, right? But I wanted to see assassins more viable, right? They struggled as a class for a long time. Being an assassin player, it's kind of like I want to see, you know, assassins in pro play. I want to see them at different levels of elo and like that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's why we've done it. But yeah, I mean, obviously with Rengar and LeBlanc, we didn't quite hit the mark. And we'll continue to look at that. We did this with Kog'Maw, right? Where we ended up reverting it. And a lot of times it's like, well, maybe it's good to start talk about like the kind of history of class updates and why we started and stopped doing them. Might be good to get into like what the goals were in the assassin class and like what we kind of learned from that.
You guys wanted to break up the assassin damage to make sure it wasn't like actually, okay, they have no counterplay, you one hit them. The Rengar, famous Rengar clips of jumping on 80 carries and just exploding into confetti is all over the place. So I understood that.
Yeah, but what we learned obviously is if assassin doesn't kill someone in 0.5 seconds, they kind of can't do their job, right? And they kind of need to do that, and so we've been looking more at assassins and like how do we let them do that in unique and interesting ways so they don't all feel the same, right? Because like as I mentioned, the purpose of the class updates originally actually stemmed from more of like kind of a balance problem, right? Where like we had all these characters that we added a ton of characters to the game, and a lot of them were very similar. And when you have like 6 champions that are very similar, whatever one's stronger is going to immediately be the one everyone plays on the patch, right? Or the most meta champion. This is similar to what I mentioned with the ADC class, which even after the class update, which while some of the ADCs now are like more unique in that they go to different roles, like Graves, playing jungle, the class still suffers from this like whatever one's stronger. So we wanted to like basically try to give all champions those. You mentioned a lot of champions used to have unique mechanics. We're like, well, unique mechanic usually makes your champion somewhat relevant, even if they're weak. Because if you have some strategic identity where at least you're a niche pick against a certain thing because of your mechanic, even when you're weak, you'll be useful sometimes, right? So we wanted with the class updates to go through very quickly, would just change like one ability each and try to give a lot of champions that were the same unique abilities so they would be more useful dependent of numbers, balance tuning. And this is also what we wanted to do with assassins. And we also wanted to like the other goal was to make them healthier, so maybe we can make them like less elo dependent and more viable. We can put more strength into their utility, hopefully, if they weren't as like felt as frustrating to play against. But what we did in some cases with the ones that had delays was make them so they just couldn't kill you fast enough, right? To even succeed at the thing they have to do as a class, which is kill the ADC or kill the carry, right? Mm-hmm. So with the Assassin class update, we obviously missed on 2 of them. I think Cat and Talon ended up very well. Talon was one of, for example, when I mentioned the breadth versus depth stuff, one of the biggest jumps we've seen in like play rate since his update, which is like a lot of people find him more exciting. Before he was kind of like similar to Zed in a lot of ways, and giving him the ability to like jump over walls made him kind of more unique and made him like kind of very interesting kind of roaming based assassin. But we took a lot of what we learned did and didn't work from the Assassin update, and we like applied that to stuff like Kayn or future assassins, where like Kayn has been a relatively balanced assassin, right? Because we kind of learned what worked and didn't work through the process of it. And even if you go back to all the class updates, there's always been a few that we've missed on, right? But doing a whole class at once and releasing it and finding out what worked and didn't work usually allowed us to make better champions in that class in the future.
But let me ask you about, because not about assassins, because I don't play assassins. They don't matter to me. Near and dear to my heart, Graves. What do you think of? Do you think that there'd be ever a possibility of him going back to his old ways? Because I'll say I used to love. I played the hell out of Graves. I'm sure Scar.
You played a lot.
I played a lot of fucking Graves. Like I loved the old champ. I loved like his theme. I loved the way that he works. Is that something that's? I don't know how you guys feel about that, like how he used to be compared to how he is now.
So yeah, I mean, obviously we think Graves was good in that he's more unique, right? This goes back to the goals of the class update, which was like our goals were to take champions that were very similar and make them different, right? And with that, Graves and Lucian were very similar at the time, and I feel like now they're very different, which is good. The negative side of it and why we ended up discontinuing class updates was for that exact reason. It's like we're differentiating them and we're actually seeing a lot of meaningful diversity from these class updates. But there's a lot of player pain in that, like, oh, my champion, I played Graves. I don't care that Lucian's the same as me, and now my champion's changed, right? And we saw that with lots of our reworks where players are getting frustrated about this. And after we got through a lot of the big classes, we realized that like the diminishing returns on the player pain this is causing to the point where the choices at that point were champions that were like kind of the same but not like super similar, and it just wasn't worth the player pain for the benefits we'd keep getting if we kept doing the class updates. But it's absolutely a valid point, and it's not just Graves. Like this happens a lot when we rework. Any rework we do is going to come with some frustration and change of version, right, from players.
So does that mean that there is now an opportunity for a new champion to be that, like, shotgun wielding melee?
Yeah, I want that Juggernaut style AD. I want the guy that just AD. Goes in there with the big ass weapon and just blasts them with it.
Yeah, absolutely. There was actually like very early when we were exploring before we landed on the direction we wanted for Kaisa. There was like this version of this almost melee, super close range champion that would like grab. I think we had this idea of a champion that would grab other champions and hold them hostage and like use them as a shield, like Braum shield, and crazy stuff like that.
Wait, that would be a champion right there. What the hell is that? Yeah, if I could just grab someone and turn them like a jet, holy shit. That if an AD came out like that, that would be. I mean, I love Kaisa. I'm playing the hell out of her, but like that shit sounds cool as hell.
It was cool. The tech to get like it to work if I grab Annie or Alistar and it didn't look like completely stupid was the problem. But I think we could like it's still an interesting concept. You just like use another champion as like a Braum shield.
Actually, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Having to grab like a 50-foot tall Alistar compared to like a little girl probably doesn't end up looking right. I could see that. All right, let's go to the next topic. Next topic.
I have to preface this. Go on.
Do uglier champions see less play, and is that a factor for champion creators when creating champions?
I have to preface this. I was told, I don't know if this was true or not, that Urgot had like one of the worst win rates pre-rework of like any champion, or worst play rates. And then a lot of the reason why he didn't get played that much is because that guy is just ugly. Throw like an ugly guy on top of like a mechanical like 8 legs. Like no one wanted to play him because he was ugly. Is that what you guys consider? Are you guys just like this champion must aesthetically look good?
No. So I think Urgot definitely suffered from nobody wanting to play him, but I don't think so ugly and beauty I think is a bit subjective. I think what we do care about is whether the champion has an aspirational fantasy or not, and I don't think old Urgot had an aspirational fantasy, right? It's not like new Urgot is like super handsome or super attractive or anything, but I think it's like he has a power fantasy that you can imagine people would want to play as, right? And we want all our champions to be like, yeah, I want to like, come home from school or come home from work, or I'm going to jump in league and I want to like play as this champion, right? And we see that across the board where it's not necessarily always like ugly or non-ugly. It's like, is this fantasy aspirational or not? We can make like probably a very attractive champion that's like very weak, acting and is like timid and like scared all the time, and like probably that would not be very successful because people would be like want to play something more exciting, more aspirational, right?
Did Kaisa sell well? I'm just curious when you make that statement.
I have no idea. No, he did. I know.
I'll say because I've read like I'll sometimes like read like the boards or whatever, and people will always ask like, do you for non-humanoid champion, like something like a plant, something maybe like a hideous type of character, that kind of thing. Is that stuff that you guys are interested in making? Because I know you said that you gotta want to come and play. I can understand you don't want to play this like just horribly disfigured guy that's just like my life sucks, something like that. But
yeah, I mean we don't want to make non-aspirational champions, but we do think it's important to do like non-humanoid creatures and stuff. Probably not to the degree like Ornn, for example, was like a more like creature-esque champion, right? We've done stuff like Kindred.
I feel like everything's still kind of like humanoid. Would you guys ever consider doing like, let's say, a gigantic plant champion? They just
like
bundle.
Malcolm?
No, like without humanoid features. Everyone kind of looks human. Like, are you guys okay with doing like? Oh, actually,
Kog'Maw, like, or Skarner, right?
See, my problem with Skarner, the reason I hate that champ is he has a human face, and that just like I look at this champion, and it's just like, why do you look like this? Like, it just bothers me so much. It's like, just why do you look like this, and why do you like when he talks about I miss my kind and all that shit? It's just like I hate this fucking champion. I'll just say that for Skarner, but. I think that.
Aurelion Sol, right, isn't humanoid.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah.
I think I love Aurelion Sol. Thematically, I think that champ is great.
Yeah, I think Aurelion.
But maybe
Oh,
sorry.
I was going to answer the question basically. Yeah, we do like doing those champions. We tend to think that like obviously the humanoid champions tend to be more resonant and popular with our players, but I think having champions like Kog'Maw and Aurelion Sol is also good too, to have like a unique and diverse cast basically.
Okay. Sounds pretty good to me. Sounds like a good answer. So would you? This is a good topic again. Sky on top of the topic. Would you ever let the hosts of Beyond the Rift design our own champions for Riot Games?
Definitely not. Definitely not. Is there another question?
Nah.
Wait,
I'll say if I ever got to design a champion, I'll just say my design like. I would want, like I said, I want a juggernaut, like, shotgun wielding dude. Like he said, if it could be someone that, like, holds someone hostage, that kind of shit, just dashes into the fight, like, grabs someone and just starts, like, popping off. That would be fucking cool. Like, I would be.
Would you come to Riot to play it, though, Cutie?
Would I come to Riot to play? I'd come to Riot to play. If that was something that was in production, I would be so down to try. Dude, I remember
because I wrote you to come play Kaisa while we had it in development.
Dude, okay. I'm just saying that I'm gonna end up moving to California, so I will be near Riot, and if they ever make a champion that's like a shotgun bruiser type 80 carry, I will be all over that shit. Like,
dude, I was gonna have you play it with Kiwi Kid. It was gonna be sick.
Dude, that probably would have been good. I mean, I'm lazy as hell, man. Scar, what's your fantasy champion?
Honestly, I kind of just like. I like the idea of a grapplers. Like when you said hold a person hostage, like I like the idea of. I mean, you ever play like games where like the guy just kind of like wrestles you onto the floor and does like combo grapple moves? Like in fighting games, I kind of want a grappler to come into the league as well. It's like you're able to like kind of like combo people down that way. I don't know why. I just feel like that'd be a cool design.
Yeah,
we actually there was an early like before we started Ornn, when we were in the early stages of Ornn, there was 2 opportunity spaces. One was a blacksmith and one was like a grappler type champion. We were looking at
Ornn could have been a grappler.
Could have been.
That would have been pretty cool.
I mean, we want to make like you're talking about like the what's his name the guy from Street, Zangief type champion, right?
Yeah, I'm down. Like that, or like you go to Tekken, you look at King. Guy just like grapples you. I'm interested.
No, that's a cool fantasy that we definitely think League could use at some point for sure.
Yeah, I'll say too. Like I remember this was like 5 years ago or some shit when Lucian first came out, and I tried him out, and he was like gonna be like some trick shot type dude or some shit. I forget like what exactly he was gonna be. A trick shot type champion would be fucking cool, dude. Like someone that just does some like weird ass shit with his guns, and it's like, I don't know, dude. Something cool with guns. That's my fantasy. Like Devil May Cry.
So Lucian mixed with
no. Like Devil May Cry, like
Lucian
Dante.
Ezreal's kid is basically what you're talking
about. If you make a Dante type character with like guns, and then you switch to a sword, and then do all this kind of shit, that would be. I'm all over that.
That's actually funny. Like our earlier Aatrox stuff we had in development was very like kind of Devil May Cry combo-y stuff that didn't end up working out. But we had a thing at one point where he could knock you up with an ability, and then he would jump up in the air and be untargetable and be able to use QW or E and like either knock you away or knock you off of you,
fuck?
or like knock you down and stun you, so he could like knock people in the air and do like air combo.
Wait, that's such a good. What the hell? Wait, that sounds like such a good idea, though. What the hell? Like if
he was untargetable in there.
Yeah, like
well, how? I mean, you got to go up and do combos. It's like
Yeah, like that would make me feel cool as hell. Like I don't care if the ability to zero. I don't care if Aatrox was still off. Like just going in the air and just like fighting someone would be. That'd be fucking cool. That's a good idea right there.
No, we tried to make that work a lot because it was like the promise is like sick, right?
Yeah,
it sounds super fun.
Man, damn, I like that. All right, let's see though what the people like, because we're going now to the Discord question and answer, because I know the people got questions, and ladies and gentlemen, we got some answers. So let's go and start looking for some good questions. This guy Ron Newton's wants to know. I'll just start off with this because I was playing with Danny and I got a taste of Azir. So what do you think of Azir's rework? Is Riot considering removing his mobility so he's not so hard to balance?
So that rework was done by the live gameplay team, the recent one. I mean, it's something we've talked about, right? I'm not sure what direction they'll end up going, or if they will do any more reworks on Azir. I'm not sure what they think of the current state. I know the current rework, we did discuss that. There was a lot of discussions internally on whether we remove the dash or not. And even Azir players were like 50-50, where half were like, that's the reason I played this champion. Don't do anything with it. And the other half were like, yeah, if you removed it and, played up his other aspects, that would be cool too. So yeah, I'm not sure what or if what we do if we change him again, if we need to. But I think that's always the kind of thing on the table. The mobility on him has always kind of been one of the things that makes him hard to balance, right?
Okay. A. Lamau wants to know, and this is a question I want to know too. Can we have a nice Mordekaiser VGU? His character concept's cool as hell, but he looks like, and I don't agree with this, a boiled cow scrotum. I think he looks cool as hell, dude. He's like an armored dude. I think he looks cool, but what's your take on Mord?
I mean, Mord's very high on our list, right? Like, Mord and Nunu are the two that are like the Urgot and Yorick of old, where it's like, they're super high on our list. We want to make sure when we do them right. So if we explore them, we want to make sure we have a really solid direction, because we know players really want those two, and Mordekaiser, I think, doesn't even show up on like champion GT play rate sometimes. But he's also got a cool thematic, right? He's basically like our Death Knight archetype, which is like a really cool archetype that I think, given a VGU, Mordekaiser could actually be like really interesting and awesome. So yeah, we definitely want to VGU Mordekaiser.
22 wants to know, is there a chance you guys will ever publish a list or blog about the breadth versus depth idea? It's the most interesting concept I've heard of as a statistic so far.
We did, actually. So I can't remember his writer name. I think it's published under his writer name. But it's David Novati. You might be able to look that up. He did a Nexus article on this, and it kind of even showed like creature versus human, and it actually showed the breadth versus depth chart, and how like obviously the humanoid champions are like way higher than the creature champions. It also looks at depth, like so the two deepest champions in the tire. We like champions generally if they're deep or broad. They're generally good, right? If a champion's not deep or broad, it's usually those are the VGU ones we're looking at, where it's like not a lot of people play him and not a lot of people keep playing him. Yorick and Kled are like the deepest champions in the game, where it's like
really?
not a lot of so not a lot of people play them, and that's fine. But the people that do play them really like them, which means they see the art, the theme, and the kit, and they're like, "This is for me," and they play it and go, "Yep, this is for me. I love it." Whereas like you see other champions like Aurelion Sol's always been a problem, where it's like people see Dragon and they're like, dude, I want to play a dragon. And then they go in the game, and the gameplay they get doesn't exactly match what they think a dragon should be. And then it creates a more niche thing where, like, it's not exactly giving them the dragon fantasy they wanted, so they might go to something different. Or if Aurelion Sol was themed as, like, maybe more like a Zenyatta from Overwatch type theme, where he's, like, because he's, like, doing this kind of star thing, right? Maybe that theme would people that like that theme would be like, yes, this is the gameplay for me kind of thing. But yeah, we published a whole thing on that if you look it up on the Nexus.
Okay.
Our insights team. So we have like an insights team that gathers all this data for us and does all these player surveys and stuff.
Let's see. My friend here, Captain Clean, wants to know, what's the longest time you've spent on a champion and the shortest?
So I mean, Aurelion Sol probably, if you think all the way back to like Aushin and stuff, I think has to be the longest. I wasn't even here when the original Aushin stuff started.
I played the original, or the second or third iteration of that champion. And
yes.
where it came down to, it was literally Lightning Dragon Cannon with a global. and then it then ended up being the current Soul. And like the ability to like go from there to here, I was just like, what on earth happened?
Yeah, Aurelion Sol was actually in development when I started, right? He had this crazy alt where his alt was basically only usable 3 times. So rather than get an alt, he got the ability to use one of his alts when he hit level 6. And basically he'd make this giant star path that extended each one. So you can have 3 star paths. They're permanent. A giant star path across the entire map in the line from where he drew it. And he could fly over walls in that star path. So you could basically make 3 of them. It was insane. But that champion probably was in development the longest. And then the fast ones, I don't even know. It's probably before I was here and we were making them like every 2 weeks, right? That's probably the time they were making champions the fastest. I know since I started, I think like Jin and Ornn were pretty fast. They were like 8 to 9 months.
Wow, that's fast.
Oh my god.
Holy.
Well, you think, like I said, we usually have like 3 months of like discovery and figuring out the kit and everything like that, and making sure with the 440 champions that we have to make sure a kit feels different. It takes a lot more time, right? And then it takes a team to actually build it, make all that stuff ends up taking like another like 6-ish months.
Well, I can't believe that you said Jin was like one of the faster ones that you guys had done.
Jin was faster. A lot of them are fast if so we like I said, we have like 3 to 4 months of discovery ideation, but if like, you know, the kit gets locked really fast because it just comes together very well, and the art and the narrative all comes together very quickly, it could go into production faster, right?
Oh, okay.
Yorick was like super long, right? Because he had a maiden, he had ghouls, he had all this stuff that like, even though the design didn't take as long, actually making him, or Kane, right? He has 3 different models. They all have like different effects and stuff. So those champions tend to like go up in scope and take a bit longer on the production side.
Oh, that makes sense. Wolfie wants to know, you talked a lot about updating champion. I guess, I don't know if you'd be the person, but what about updating the map in camps again?
This is the design of the map or the art of
Yeah, I guess the art of the map.
Yeah, I mean, we're not in development or anything right now because it looks pretty good. I think that we treat League, though, like it's like we're constantly updating and evolving it, and if we get to a point where the map's not, you know, good enough anymore or feels outdated, I'm sure we'd discuss doing it again, right? Like, we kind of treat League like we're in the process of making League of Legends 2. Instead of making League of Legends 2, we're just like slowly making it. So we're like, if you were like someone from League of Legends Season 2 and then you blacked out on League and came in today and we showed you the new game with the map and you had like updated Poppy and all these champions and you told someone, this is League 2, they'd be like, yeah, this is League 2, right? Because all these champions, they look like they're kind of already there to some degree. And if we needed to like make League 3 to some degree at some point, we'd probably like be like, okay. But currently, I think the map looks great. So
I could agree with that. I like the way the map looks. I guess we'll end it with this question because I guess this is a question. It's a question that I've thought about too a lot. But have you guys ever thought about making an Invoker type champion with 10 skills? I actually think that
I would love to make this champion. Okay, I would love to make this champion. Right? I don't know how well that fits into League, but I think Invoker is like a super cool fantasy that if we can get something like that in League, a lot of players would like, right? It's like the idea of like maybe like a champion that's a lot based on your decision making overall, your abilities, rather than like how fast and mechanical skills you have. It's kind of like an interesting concept to me.
So that would be something you'd want to explore, like a spellcaster that can like, I want to do this type of spell. I want to do a different type of spell that's not just like your average, here's your 4 spells, or here you can swap forms and here's 4 new spells, something like on the fly, that type of thing's what you'd look for?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an exciting opportunity space. I think like making it work in League is like another step, right? Because our game's different than Dota in a lot of ways. But I think it is an exciting opportunity space we've discussed a lot, right? Like, can we make a champion that essentially, maybe it's not exactly like Invoker, right? But the idea is like a champion that has 20 abilities, right? And the skill is, maybe it's like, right, you know, it's a combination or something of 2 keys makes an ability. And it's like, it's the skill test on that is less on the mechanics and more like, I have 20 abilities, which is the best one to use in here. But like, playing against that visual clarity, it's like a lot of difficulties we have to overcome because League very much is about visual clarity, right? And it's like playing against that, you also have to know what to do, and that would be kind of the challenge, right?
Yeah, I'll say on that, I've been playing a little bit of Dota, and like half of the time, I have no fucking idea what is happening. It's just like I played against Invoker. It's like, what the fuck is he doing? Like, I'm just fucking dead. He's like perma stunning me. I have no idea what the hell is happening, and now I'm dead. So I could definitely see how that would be. That's quite a task to figure out how to make it work in League. Because in League, I feel like I know it's like I don't know what Kaisa, or even if I didn't know what Kaisa does, like, her abilities would be like, okay, this makes sense. Like, she's dashing at me. Her passive's going to do a lot of damage to me. Like, yeah. In Dota, I have no fucking idea what's happening, so.
I mean, we spent like a lot of time, right, on Zoe's just stealing summoner spells and making sure that like had visual clarity too. Just like balloons that show up and like the summoner spells are bright and like flashing on the ground and they're on the icon bar and it's like that's just stealing summoner spells, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
you guys do so much visual clarity. Even the fact that one of the biggest things for me was when you ignite someone, it shows like an allied colored spell or an enemy colored line going from the person who ignites, so you can tell which person ignites you. Like, I was just like, holy shit, that's so helpful from like a spectator's point of view.
yeah, and we have people like that they just do this, like, right? We have a team that did like the health bars and stuff that just focuses on visual clarity in the game, right? We feel like that's like super important, right? For a game like League. Any kind of competitive multiplayer game, clarity is like, I think, extremely important. We put a lot of time on champions into this. I mean, Tarek's ult was one where like, I think we did so many iterations because it was so powerful, him like making a whole team invulnerable, that if you can't read that, it was like detrimental, but at the same time it's huge, right? And we have a lot of effects going on in the game competing with one another, so you have to be like, okay, this ability has to absolutely be understood, can't drown out a bunch of other important effects, right? And like struggling with that stuff sometimes can actually be like quite a lot of work on iteration time, so.
Okay, well that makes sense. Well, that's going to conclude, ladies and gentlemen, Beyond the Rift episode number 85. I want to thank Skara and thank our special guest and thank you guys for joining us today. Skara, if the people want to see more of you, where can they see you?
Twitch and Twitter on twitch.tv/Skara, twitter.com/Skara are my two biggest things. You find me there. I'll be streaming later today in a couple hours. I want to say, Reeve, thank you for coming on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun, and I hope you get to take Kaisa to Challenger.
Yeah, don't worry, dude.
We got some hotfix buffs on the way.
No, it's already in.
They're already in?
The buffs?
Yes, the hotfix buffs have already been put in the game, like just now.
Wow, wait,
while we're doing the show.
She was in for a day, right? And they already hotfix buffed her? Damn. Wow, that's...
I mean, she's looking at like 39 to 40% win rate, so yeah, we feel... We were predicting, I think, she would have about 44 on day one because she's actually pretty unique to play and climb from there. But this is like a lot lower than we had initially thought. Yeah, before I was coming to this, we were like, the designer was starting to put them in. So
okay, yeah.
It's like they're out already.
Yeah, I'll say though, for anyone watching right now, Kaisa, that champion's gonna be freeload. Dude. Like, play that champion because if those hotfix buffs are like decent, she's gonna be absolutely nutty. Without a doubt.
I mean, Robert X. Lee, who's been playing it for like the last 4 or 5 months, wrecked some people in playtests, so we'll see.
Did he wreck Skara in it?
I don't think
he played against
Yeah.
That the playtest I played, let's just say
you got destroyed.
We're interested. No, Swain actually 1v9 in the playtest, so I didn't get the.
But Rob's had been playing Swain for like the last 4 months as a playtester, so right.
Yeah.
Well, all right then.
Cool.
That's going to be it for Beyond the Rift. I'm going to be trying out some more Kaisa and hopefully not going to Diamond 1. But thanks for tuning in, everyone. God bless, much love. Hope you have a good rest of your day. Peace.
All right, guys.